Hi, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between block and random drills. First of all, it's important to understand why we drill in the first place. So we drill to practice our skills, we drill to practice their application in the game and to improve the transfer rate of how we practice into how we play. Block is an approach that we take where we approach the same situation over and over again and we execute the skill. So in regards to a break mark drill, this is coming up to the same force and breaking the force in a particular way where we know the cut is coming across the back, okay? And then once you do that, you move on to the next part of the drill, you repeat the process, you go around the back, and you come back in, you break the mark again, and you get lots of reps. And you get a lot of repetitions doing the same thing over and over again. So it gives you time to develop your skills. However, if you want to improve your transfer rate of this skill into a game, this one situation that you've practiced is probably not how it will be in a game. You're almost certainly not going to be walking up to a mark, okay, unless you're picking the disc up from the sideline. You're usually going to be catching the frisbee, approaching the force, and then breaking it. But also, you won't have a pre-designated idea of what you want to do before you approach this force. Often that's one of the things that leads to a lot of turnovers is somebody who's already made a decision before they've assessed the situation. Okay, in skill acquisition, it's known as reading. So when someone approaches a block drill, they're repeating the same process over and over again. A random drill would have the situation as well as the actual execution of the skill a lot more like a game. So I have some clips that I've taken here. I'm currently at the European Youth Ultimate Championships coaching the under-20s team, and I used some of the lads to show 3 examples. And what you'll see in the examples is a block, ordinary block break mark drill, where the player approaches a pre-decided force and breaks the mark. Next, you'll see a drill with a little bit more of a random focus, where the forcer will decide, okay, but still the cut's very much the same, all the situations very much the same. And then the third thing you'll see is a fully random drill, where the forcer takes the thrower into an area in the drill area, to anywhere in the drill area. This can be close to a sideline, in the middle of the field, close to the previous thrower, further away from the previous thrower. They then put on a force that the player has no idea what it's going to be, home, away, more flat, whatever. And then the cut is just going to make it so it goes open side, then break side. And if they're also more random in the way that they cut, it increases the likelihood that the drill will be a little bit more game-like. You don't always get to decide when you need to break the mark, but breaking the mark is obviously a very important skill. So getting better at this in a random situation is ideal. Apologies for the quality of the clip. As I say, I'm at a tournament at the moment, so it's hard to make, and also it's absolutely boiling here, and the boys would not wear their kit. So apologies for that. Okay, we'll watch the clips. Now, this is an example of a standard block break force drill. Okay, go! Oh yeah. Okay, the player is meeting the same force every time. Okay. Okay, so this time the force will decide which direction to go and be more random. Ollie, force a different way. Different way from that. Yeah. You've got to make a break mark cut though, Ollie. So this time the forcer decides where to go in the pre-designated area and put on a random force, and then the cutter has to react to that. Okay, so let's go! So the forcer pulls the thrower into a random area, puts on a random force, and now the thrower has to read before they make the cut. The force has decided here, and the cut and the throw is different. This time the forcer pulls the person over here and the cut is different. So as you see from the third clip in particular, every situation is going to be different. And what you can't see, because the clip quality isn't great, something that we do in our team is we make a drill area. Okay, so it essentially sort of has 4 sidelines. You're in quite a large box. And sometimes the players will pull the thrower towards the sideline, and when they do this, it creates a situation where you can force somebody to break the mark towards a sideline or in a really unfavourable part of the field, and that way somebody has to break the mark early. Okay, they're sort of forced into a situation like you are in a game sometimes, where it's vital that you get that breakout. And then also the cutter has to do things like toe the line once they've broken the mark. So all these situations that we're recreating, they are much more game-like. So the one thing I'm not suggesting is that random is better than block. I'm sort of suggesting that there is a progression here between when you're learning your skill, or you're trying to develop the team skills in doing a certain thing, that a block, like more repetitions sort of approach is much better. But then as you move on to better quality drills and you want them to be game-like, creating more random situations is what you want to achieve. So where does this fit in? This fits in somewhere between the sort of standard way that you drill and before you would play a game or a scrimmage or a themed game. Somewhere in there you can have a more random approach to drills, and you can also start to make standard block drills take into account some more random things, such as in the second clip where we saw that the forcer decided which way that they would force, and the cut would just make a different cut based on that. It's not quite as random as the fully random drill, but again it's less block in its approach than the first clip was. So the next question to answer is why? Okay, so why is random good? So I'm not a sports scientist. All I've done is research the theory and applied it to the way that my team trains. So all I can talk about is the things that I have read and learnt, and hopefully that will be enough information. And also after this presentation, I will supply a YouTube video or a link to a YouTube video which really nicely sums this up across other sports as well. Okay, so why? So I talked before about transfer rate. Transfer rate is the ability to execute your skills in a game. So skills aren't just your ability to actually do the breaking of the mark, but it's to read and assess the situation and to appropriately pick how to execute your skill. Breaking the mark is a real obvious example of that. Okay, you see the cut, you look at the defense, and then you think about how you're going to get the disc beyond the person who's forcing you in a way that's catchable and safe and all those sorts of things. So the transfer rate is the skill, is that practice into a game situation. Now, in skill acquisition, they have measured the difference between a control group of people who just used a block approach for a brand new skill versus a group of people who used a random approach to this skill. The training quality of the block group was higher than the training quality of the random group. Fundamentally, random approach is much harder, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the fact that it might take some convincing of a team to pick that up. But once you get into a game, the transfer rate, the ability to actually execute those skills in the random group was much higher than the block group. There are some nice graphs in the YouTube video. I don't have any graphs to show you. Maybe I'll put some in the presentation. So I just previously mentioned about how the quality of the training session in the random group versus the group that uses block a lot is going to be different. So first of all, I'll talk about the negatives. The negatives are that this approach is much harder. It is harder to get good at the drill. Some coaches and players will have experienced how good a team is at drilling a certain situation, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you can transfer that into a game. In fact, actually, the science sort of suggests that once you become good at the drill, you're actually only practicing that block situation, versus when you're practicing in a random way, you are practicing more game-like situations. The drill quality, in my experience, so anecdotally, is significantly noticeable. The amount of times that you feel as though people are forcing the break, or you can see sort of a frustration in the way that they're approaching the drill is obvious. But once they've bought into the idea, or maybe even experienced how the transfer rate has improved, that they buy into this idea that actually training in this way is much better for us, and we are getting better results from practicing in a more game-like situation.